Well, the Orioles have split the first two games in Kansas City this week. Our next guest got to call the fun one on Monday night. Well, the fun one for us, anyway. He is, of course, an analyst for Fox Sports. He is a former big leaguer. He is Mark Sweeney, and he is with us now here on GCR. Mark, it's Glenn. It's great to chat with you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Oh, Glenn, I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, it was a good game the other night, and came down to both teams needing a victory, and it was a big one for the Orioles.
We say it was a good game. I feel like it was largely unwatchable for a long point, but that's baseball, right?
It is baseball.
That's the way it works. Mark, I asked this question very broadly because, admittedly, we are struggling with it. The Orioles are still right around 500, but I ask it broadly. Are the Orioles a good baseball team?
Yeah, they're a good baseball team. I think it really is difficult for a lot of teams, and you see it across the league. And there's some surprises because there's teams like the Orioles that you thought were going to get off to a good start. And really identifying yourself, and we talked about this on the broadcast, when you're having struggles, it feels like you have zero identity. And that's not a good place in baseball because you start looking at it and realizing it becomes individualized at the beginning of the year because everyone wants to get off to a good start individually, but collectively is what you have to do. And I think it's one of those aspects that you got to have one of your stars really step up and take the reins. But also, more importantly, you got to get good pitching. And when you get good pitching, you can sustain some winning streaks.
I think what you just said there, the stars, I think there's two guys that maybe we have a little bit of a question about because you're right. And we know that no single player can carry a team. It doesn't work that way in baseball. But uniquely, I think we're confused by the start for Gunnar Henderson, right, who has not been a natural outcomes guy in his career. He's been a hit tool guy. Now, he had a little bit of a down season last year, but that was because he was dealing with an injury. I don't want to panic about Gunnar Henderson, but is there anything to worry about whether or not perhaps this is just the new way of baseball that maybe somebody has gotten into Gunnar Henderson's ear and said, no, you got to hit – you want to get the mega contract, you got to hit 40 home runs, and that maybe this is just what we're going to have to deal with because that's the way baseball works anymore, is that everyone is going to be a natural outcomes hitter.
Yeah, Glenn, I think everyone wants the Aaron Judge that takes on and assumes the responsibility of an offense. And I say that because when they go, everyone else feels at ease. Gunnar Henderson has that ability. We all know that. We saw it 2 years ago. Like you mentioned, he went through injuries last year, and sometimes that's very difficult. But everyone has to pull on the rope. This is a talented roster that has dealt with a lot of injuries earlier in the year. But everyone doesn't want to talk about injuries and why they're not doing it. Adley Rutschman coming back last night obviously helps.
Mm-hmm.
He hits the home run. There's complement players and there's complement superstars. And I mean that as a way of going out there and performing. Pete Alonso has to be a better version of himself. And when you sign a big contract like that, you're out of New York. There's a lot more pressures, and you seem to see the guys that are doing that. Pete Alonso has a track record that he's going to hit the ball out of the ballpark. 2-3 run homers are going to change those dynamics. But also, getting back to my point, I think Adley Rutschman and also Gunnar Henderson are going to feel just more comfortable when everyone's doing their thing. And yes, you have, 159 games left, 158 games left.
Mm-hmm.
148 games left. You're going to be able to have those stretches where everyone's going to get hot and you're going to feel comfortable. This team hasn't done that yet, and they're expected to do it. So it is a culmination of the stars being stars, but also you've had some really good stories as well.
No doubt. Jeremiah Jackson stands out. We'll get to that. We're chatting with Mark Sweeney from Fox Sports. I'll correct my math again. 138 games. I did do
130. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's all good. I was to understand there would be no math. But as you said about Pete Alonso, again, to you, is it just the pressure of changing cities, that slow starts happen, the weather's going to heat up, and he's going to start pumping balls out of the ballpark. I think we all know Pete Alonso is probably not going to be your hit tool guy, but
Yeah.
I'm still not panicked yet. My gut tells me there's still at least 35 home runs in Pete Alonso's bat because that's just what he does.
Yeah, and I saw him on Monday night, and I've seen him obviously leading up to the game on Monday. It just looks like he's swinging more than he's taking an approach, and I say that because Pete Alonso understands how to hit. He's known for his power. He's going to hit home runs, and especially in Baltimore, that's going to leave a lot of pressure on everybody. But Pete Alonso needs to just slow down, and why I say that every hitter is better when they slow down, they get an understanding, and you're not just swinging for the fences. He's a better version of himself because he can miss-hit a ball and hit it out. That's why we always talk about that right-handed power that Pete Alonso has. This is something that it just comes and you start getting, it might be a bleeder, a jam shot that goes into right center field, and all of a sudden things just calm down. And everyone as a fan is wondering, well, let's understand that you got to come out and service that contract that we gave you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the mentality of a fan, and I don't blame them. As a player, you want to settle in. You want to be a compliment to Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman and all the other guys. But really, when you think about it, it goes back to your other question. Is this a good team? Yes, they are. They have the ability to be able to pitch every single night. They don't have a lockdown ace, so to speak, but they have a lot of talent in the pitching rotation. When you get in good ruts with your pitchers, I think that's when you go off and you start winning consistent games because this team can reel off some winning streaks for sure.
You referenced those good stories. Jeremiah Jackson, Leody Taveras clearly stand out among those two. Both, off to incredible starts. Jackson OPSing 848, Taveras OPSing 921. Are these legitimate? Like, are these guys that we're gonna look back and say, hey, remember when they had that crazy 3 weeks to start the season? Or do you see something in these two guys that makes you say, that there might really be a chance that the Orioles have found something in guys that were both heralded at points in their careers, but then were available for a song because it just wasn't sticking in the places where they were?
I think they're both players that if you look around the league and you see the adjustments that a lot of these winning teams are making, these are needed players. And I say that because they do a lot of things. Jeremiah Jackson understands that he can play. He made a mistake defensively the other night, and all of a sudden he comes back and hits the big home run. And you start realizing this is the type of guy that we want. We want complement players because that's a winning atmosphere. I think Taveras has the ability that everyone's been waiting for. He slowed down a couple years with Texas, and it was a kind of a surprise. I think this is a new beginning for him. Is it going to be sustained all through the year and they're going to be all-star caliber players? That's yet to be seen. But I would rather get off to a really good start than one of those starts that you start realizing, well, was it a good spring training or did I really deserve to be on this team and be a compliment player?
That's fair. That is fair. Mark Sweeney with us here on GCR. Mark, you bring up the pitching, and I definitely talked coming into the season about how this was the deepest rotation that the Orioles had maybe had in their modern era, and that was, of course, tested very quickly because of the injury to Zach Eflin, but that's the nice part about having 6 starters. You're able to bring Dean Kramer back. That said, I do worry that perhaps they might be asking too much of Trevor Rogers and Kyle Bradish, whose talent I believe in, but who have never been a major league ace, either one of them, and they've kind of seemed to need a stopper. Rogers got off to a great start his first 3 starts of the season, but his last couple have been, really rough, and in spots where this team could have really used that stopper. Are they asking too much of those guys who have never done it before to be that traditional ace that a team needs when things are going south to step up and say, this ends here?
Yeah, I don't think that it's asking too much. I mean, you got to go out there and have the ability, and I think the team feels like they're going to win with all of their guys going out there. I mean, that's the mentality that I think is a winning ball club. If you have guys that you don't really feel like they're going to get it done or it's sporadic. Kyle Bradish the other night scattered I think 10 or 11 hits it
Yeah.
was. But he had the stuff. He just didn't have his fastball command to start the game. So again, it became at the beginning of the year, you're always talking about pitch counts and what's going on with certain guys. Kyle Bradish, once he felt the slider and he got a lot of swing and miss, you could see this was a guy that can sustain it and get you into the sixth, maybe seventh inning. That is a luxury to have nowadays. A lot of teams don't want these guys to go. You saw Seth Lugo, gave up one hit, and they're taking him out of the ball game when they needed to win. It's just one of those things. I like the Baltimore Orioles pitching staff. I think they have the ability to miss bats, which is a big key. But also they can sustain those hot stretches, and they're going to have to go through that. You're really right spot on with the stopper. I mean, there's a lot of people in baseball that would give anything to have one of those guys that's the stopper. I think there's less and less of those guys. I know there's ability, and I know there's a lot of talented pitchers out there, but there's a lot of twos and threes, and there's a lot of value in that. And I think that's where the Baltimore Orioles, in my opinion, settle in. There's not a number one, but they have a lot of good twos and threes, and they have the ability to really go on those hot stretches.
I can appreciate that. I do think that it might be that if they stay afloat and if they're in the mix, if they want to finally make a run in the postseason, which, even the times they've gotten in, they haven't even won a playoff game yet in this era of Orioles baseball, that probably would be, and I don't even know who that guy is because I don't think it's going to be Tarek Skubal, right? Like, I don't know who that guy is, but that seems to me like it would be the priority for me if I was shopping at the deadline, that if you can find that guy, you need to try to do everything you can to get that guy, because it seems like the biggest difference to me in being a contender versus being a team that can really make a move in the postseason.
Yeah, and those guys are few and far between. I mean, everyone's going to talk about Tarek Skubal because not only is he one of the best, if not the best pitcher in the game, you're starting to realize that I think that's the mentality of teams, is that they can possibly go out and get one of those guys that's a potential free agent or in the trade that can pitch at the top of your rotation that might have experience. If they do have that, they're in position to do it. I think that's a mentality that I think a lot of teams have if they don't have an ace. And I think that's what they're looking for. I think aces identify playoff teams. And obviously you look at the Dodgers and they have a plethora of aces. But I think that's the example. If we're going to go out there and have the ability to pitch and have that game one starter, it's a change of a mentality for your club. And if the Orioles can do that, I think that's the sky's the limit for that club.
All right, this is before we wrap up, Mark, I want to know your thoughts on early in the season. Everybody's in love with ABS, right? It's just cool. It's very exciting. We're starting to see, to me, a little bit more of the frustration challenges. I'm pissed that I just got struck out, and I'm going to throw away a challenge. And we've seen a few Orioles. Like the Orioles, the first week of the season, were killing it in challenges. Now you're seeing a lot more of those. And to me, it's fortifying I don't think that it's fair that it's the players themselves that have to be the ones that do this. And I have been of the opinion that you just let the robots call balls and strikes so that we get the calls right. Where are you with, okay, we've seen it now. Now we're seeing sort of the other side of it, which is just guys that are frustrated and are hurting their team by going for challenges, but they don't have any clue if it was actually a ball or not. They're just mad because of the result. What do we learn from this, and how do we make it better moving forward?
Yeah, Glenn, I think it has to be improved. I like it, first and foremost. I think it puts a lot of onus on the catchers. Hitters get emotional. We see that every single night, and they're starting to adjust. I think a lot of the managers that I've talked to say, listen, we want to encourage these guys to make mistakes or even be aggressive in situations, and we'll learn from there. I think it really is something that the Major League Baseball has to really get a hold of it and how they're going to handle it, especially coming into the playoffs, because I think that's what's going to be magnified if they have some situations that really rear its head, and it's going to be frustrating. I do think it's important at the end of the games, because you're starting to look at these closers coming in and borderline pitches being called. I would like to see them maintain at least 2 challenges when you think about going into situations that are one-run games. If they want to get it right, they should get it right in the biggest situations. And yes, there's situations early in games that you have to be right, and it can change the game as well. But really what it comes down to, and I think the onus of the ABS system, is really getting it right at the end of the games, the important pitches, the stressful situations, and getting that right. But I think it's evolving. I do think it's a good situation, and I love the crowd involvement too.
Right.
You hear it. You hear it. It's an emotional component that I think this game is really dying to have.
I agree. It is definitely added to the stadium experience. ABS. I'm with that. It's just I hate the idea that because somebody got angry about the fact that they were just struck out, they waste a challenge, and now there's a really important pitch late in the game that might help to decide the game, and you don't have a challenge in order to go to. And I don't like that at all. But I get it. You got
understandable.
You got to convince your players to stop doing that. You got to go that
exactly.
route.
And I said this the other night too, and I was talking to Craig Albernaz, who is wonderful, by the way. I'm an East Coast guy. I'm from Boston, so he's the Fall River guy.
So you can understand everything he's saying, right?
I can understand it. It's wicked awesome, and it's great. He made a great point because it was Samuel Basayo. And he was emotional, and it was on the homestand, and they had a conversation coming back to the dugout. This is what it is evolving. You can't get emotional in one of those situations where it's a borderline pitch and it's a 1-0 count. It has to be one of those swing counts where it's 2 strikes. You have to have an understanding of it. And I think everyone's evolving in this because your mentality isn't an immediate, I'm going to tap my head.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a certain amount, but some of these umpires are not giving that. If you make a move and you make a move to throw back to the pitcher, they're not going to allow it. It's just one of those things. I think emotionally you have to stay away from it, but also understand the strategy involved. And when you do it that way, I think it will evolve into a good thing.
Mark Sweeney, when we seeing you next?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
All right.
But hopefully I get to have an Orioles game. I know I'm working in St. Louis with the Cardinals, so I know I have that series when Baltimore comes in. So I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent. Actually, I'm trying to get down there. Tedeschi Trucks is playing in St. Louis that same week, so I'm thinking about maybe making that trip.
Perfect.
I'll come hang out with you for the week. Mark Sweeney, really appreciate taking the time for us, man. Thanks so much for doing this morning.
Thank you, Glenn, and hopefully the O's get it right and win today.